Hello. Well, it's the first Monday of the month, and that means that on Good Afternoon, it's a Mary Berry Day, I'm glad to say. Hello, Mary.
Hello, Judy.
We have all this meat in front of us, and today you're going to be talking about casseroles, aren't you, really?
Yes, using the cheaper cuts of meat and also making the meat go further.
Normally, I think, for a casserole, you'd use chuck meat. Is that right?
Yes, I think it's the most popular name. And here's chuck here. Chuck and neck are the most popular names of stewing steak, and those are the ones that most housewives go in and ask. But there are plenty of more stewing cuts to think of, and usually because they're not so well known, they're much more reasonable. Shin here, that's the front leg, and flank here, and the thin end of the flank comes just off the end, and that's the sort of tummy part of the beast.
And that's how much? About, what, 75,
about 75, yes, about 75 or 78, and it'll be in proportion cheaper than something like chuck and neck.
Does it take longer to cook?
No, the shin does, yes, but not the thin flank. Shin takes a long time to cook. Now this is the shin, a slice off the shin, and it's got rather jellyishness here when it's cooked for a long time. I think it's a delicious, all lean meat for stews.
I make beef tea with that, of course.
Yes, that's
very good for you.
And then this is the tummy part,
that's the
thin flank, and it does have a strip, Judy, of fat running all the way down here, and you can buy it from your butcher with or without fat, or you can take it off yourself, you see.
It comes away quite easily.
Peeling it back, like that, and then you can start taking the other piece of fat out in the middle. There we are. Look, you see it comes quite easily with a fairly sharp knife. So you've got to take that bit out, but you're left with lovely lean meat.
And we are going to use that in the first casserole.
That's right, and with lovely streaky bacon. That's the cheapest bacon.
Well, let's go here and
Just wipe
see
my
how
hands.
you're going to do it. What is the difference between a stew and a casserole? Is there any difference?
Well, a stew usually is cooked in a saucepan, and a casserole is served in the dish that you make it in. So it's usually done in the oven. So there's 2 pieces, Judy, of the flank, thin flank.
Which you've already taken that amount of fat out of.
That's right. I'm just going to cut it up a little tiny bit more.
And you just cut it into chunks, do you?
That's right. It cuts quite easily, and I like skirt. That's another cut that's really jolly nice. There's all the meat. 1.5 pounds, and that was the fat, Judy, that I got it out of it.
Quite a lot.
So I'm going to put that into the pan, and I've already melted 1 ounce of dripping. This will spit. Now in the casserole, I've already started by cooking the bacon first. 6 ounces of streaky bacon, without the rind. The rind I took off, and I usually fry that and keep the crispy bits for putting on top of scrambled egg, or through just eat the children whip them before I've got them. As long as they're nice and crisp, they're not to be wasted.
And you're just frying that just to brown it off.
That's right. And fry it really well, and it seals the meat too.
Keeps the juices in.
And I'm frying it in dripping. And a word about dripping, because dripping is something that you've really paid for, because dripping is what comes from the roast joint if you have one, and so always save the dripping, and you've got meat that fat that you're not going to have to go out and buy.
Because it's very expensive, isn't it, the fat?
Now that wants really a little bit longer frying, but I'm going to take it out a little bit soon.
This is what you call your French country casserole, isn't it?
That's right. It's made in the French manner. Take it out with a slotted spoon. Now this 1.5 pounds of meat will do 6 to 8.
I must say there looks to be a fair amount of good chunky meat there, doesn't there?
There we are. That is the dripping left in the pan. And I'm going to add 1 ounce of flour to that. And that starts to make the sauce. You never notice how much noise frying takes until you actually listen to it.
Until you try and talk over it as well.
There we are. And then add stock, half a pint of stock. It's worth making stock yourself from bones, and many butchers these days will even give you the bones to make it with. And what I do, if I'm going to make a lot of stock, I cover the bones, I brown them in the oven when the roast is roasting, and then I get them nice and brown, then cover them with water. And I do a second lot in the same stock, so I get a double stock. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. And you obviously add the salt and pepper to that.
That's right, and a bay leaf and some seasoning.
Do you put an onion in, Mary, in yours when you're doing the stock or not?
If I need it for the dish that I'm wanting to. But people are always saying, what can I freeze, what can't I freeze? Stock freezes terribly well, because you don't always want to use it at once. Now there we are, that's the stock. And I'm going to add wine, any cheap red wine, 1/4 pint. That's 5 fluid ounces. Save that for another day. I keep that, by the way, in the fridge if I'm going to use it for cooking.
Do you?
It keeps much better, and I shall decant it into a small jar with a lid on and put it in the fridge and use it next time.
So that it doesn't go vinegary, you mean, it seals it properly?
Typically French, that's why I'm using wine. We are drinking quite a lot of cider because it's much cheaper, and it is delicious, this very same casserole made with cider.
What, the same 1/4 pint, the same amount?
That's right. Now I'm going to make it a little bit browner than that, with a bit of gravy browning. I saved this jar from ice cream sauces my children adore, and it keeps it from running down the side. There we are. And I'm going to add salt, about a teaspoonful to the pound of meat, give or take, pepper. It's easier to season the sauce now rather than doing it in the casserole. There we are. Pour that over. Put it on a plate that's not on, I'll just cover it up. And then all I've got to do is put some nice herbs in. Now I love fresh herbs, and they're just coming in the garden now. I've got some parsley stalks, a little bit of lemon thyme, and this rather tatty little something is the beginning of the marjoram, but the flavour will be there.
Why only the stalks of the parsley? I mean, we've got all this lovely parsley here with all the green on.
Well, when I'm chopping parsley, there's always the stalks left, and there's just as much flavour in the stalks as there is in the actual
So it's
top.
waste not, want not, then as well.
Thai, I think it's a lovely expression, this, a faggot of herbs. So there we are, we've got our faggot of herbs. Pop them in the top.
The onions go in as well, don't they?
A bit later.
Ah.
Now that will shrink down, put the lid on, and cook that in the oven for, at 325, gas number 3, for about 2.5 hours. And half an hour before that, add whole onions. Now these are the smallest onions I could buy, and put those in and let it get beautifully tender.
So at about 2 hours, you'd stick those in for the last
That's right.
half hour.
And that is a lovely French country casserole. But to make it go further, do this.
You're doing
I've
some
got
very
it
good
here.
stretching ideas.
Now this is the same casserole. Now it doesn't look a nice colour now because it's cold and it's got the whole onions, and I've turned it into a 1.5 pint pie dish. And I'm going to just put round the outside a strip of puff pastry. Now I'm using bought puff pastry for this, a 7-ounce packet of bought puff pastry.
And you're just milking the edge of the pie dish?
That's right. And then if you put a layer, a strip of pastry all around the outside, Judy, that helps to make it rise to start with. Then brush the top to make the last bit of pastry stick. There we are. And then roll the pastry out, and 7 ounces is plenty for this amount. You could make your own if you want to, but I'm afraid it's just one pastry I don't bother to make myself, because you can buy it, it's very good. And this will make it go even further. Now, I'm doing this all in great detail because we do get quite a few letters from people saying, don't go so fast, we get all left behind, so I'm doing it all today.
You could actually freeze this then, couldn't you, if you wanted to?
Yes, you could.
Yes.
Now you'll notice with rolling pastry, I either do it that way or that way to keep it a good shape. There we are, just a tiny bit more that way. Fold it back over the rolling pin and then slip it over the top.
Would you freeze it uncooked, Mary, or would you cook it and then freeze it?
I would freeze it at this stage that it's at now. And then take a knife and slanting, just cut all the way around the outside. I'm turning the knife towards the bottom of the tin to allow for shrinkage.
And that you would put in for how long in the oven?
That would, you want to flute it all the way round, and it wants to cook in the oven for 30 minutes at 425.
That's just to cook the pastry, because the meat obviously is all cooked beforehand.
Right. And so you would do this in the morning, put it in the fridge, and pastry is always better chilled before cooking. And I know this, many's the time I've tried to put it straight in the oven now, and it will shrink back and you won't get an attractive thing. So in fact, I'm going to leave this on the table and go and get the one that is in the oven.
But you'd keep it in the fridge during the day and then put it straight into the oven when you take it out?
That's right.
To cook it in the evening?
And then to put leaves on top, Judy, I'll just show you quickly.
Oh, yes, I like this bit.
I know you do. And so do my children. They love helping. You cut a long strip from the trimmings and then cut leaves like that. It just finishes the thing, and then you can put... Now, I'm not going to wet it yet because I would be chilling it before freezing, before cooking. So just put the leaves on, stand them up so they look a little bit human, and then chill it, brush it with milk and cook it for the 30 minutes.
Good.
Let's go and see how the one is
Let's
in the
have a
oven.
look, yeah. Oh, that looks very good, doesn't it?
All sorts of things in the oven. Can you shut the door for me, Judy? There we are, lovely and crisp and brown.
Delicious.
Do you want to have a look inside?
Yes, let's see what's happened under there.
See, nice crisp pastry. There we are.
Lovely.
And now you saw that rather unappetising colour that we had before. How lovely, the bacon makes it nice and pink. There we are, Judy.
Lovely. I'm going to have a try at that, I think. Let me taste the flavour of this.
It's all right.
It's very good, actually.